So now I just have to update something in my portal. So this is a portal that I built for my business, for my facilities. And I'm not going to go through everything within here today, but because I have a conference call coming up in about 15 minutes. But one of the things that I have to update is my daily census reports. And this portal is built with using like Google Drive, Google Scripts, Google Forms, Google Sheets, and then use my AI automation for some, not all, for some of it, because, like I said, you don't need to put AI in everything. A lot of stuff is simply just workflows and automations and just pointing it to the right thing to get the right answer. You use AI for certain reasons and figuring out certain things, but it doesn't need to be for everything. And as long as you know that, then, people can't trick you like, oh, it's AI and there's nothing to do with fucking AI. Oh, excuse me, nothing to do with AI. But what I did with this form, and the reason why I'm building the form was simply because a lot of times the state would come in and you have to have your census. One of the first things they would ask was a census. And I saw, and again, when I took over the business, it was a mom and pop. They didn't have things straightened out, but there was a lot of paper. That's it, so somebody would actually count, like, okay, well, who's here? And they would count the names out and stuff like that. Well, and sometimes they miss a name, but they'll write a name on regular paper. And then that's what they would give to, whether it's an ombudsman or whether it was a state coming into an inspection. Now, a lot of times that census sure to be done. It wasn't done. So you're just writing it up on the fly and you're giving it to them. Most of the time when they come in, that's what they want to see, because they want to see how many residents do you have in your facility, and you're counting, you're giving them the whole count of the residents that's there, residents that's out, different things like that. What I have to do right now is I just have to update and I have to remove a resident from the list. I don't know if I'm prematurely or not. I don't believe that they're coming back. So I'm just going to remove them from the list. If I have to add them back to the list, I'll add them back to the list. But that was simply it. This form that I made this is just like, it's simple, man. It's, using Google Forms, the questions and the way that I have it set up. But, it's pretty cool. So, again, I built it to prevent the write-ups that we got in the citations for not having a census ready or not knowing how many residents was in a facility or not knowing, and it was more for regulators. It was more than for regulators, even staff. If you had overnight staff on a day shift comes in, and then they're supposed to be able to tell them, hey, who's here? Did anybody go out to the hospital last night? Did anybody come in from the hospital last night? A lot of times that communication fell through the cracks. So this right here, introduced with another form, an overnight work sort of checklist form, where it's mandatory for them now to complete a census at the beginning of the shift and complete a census at the end of their shift. This form then gets emailed to the admin assistant supervisor who's on, and in most cases the med tech that's on. But once your supervisor is on, gets this form, it's automatically sent. So it should be filled out towards the end of the person's shift, and then they'll know exactly what transpired on the evening, who's there, who's not there. And it's simple. Shift, if the person was overnight, of course, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. And whoever the person was doing it, you fill it out, the date that it was the census. So let's say it's today, name, and then, pick a facility. Now, the way I have it is once you pick a facility, it's going to drop down the residents of that facility, right? And so now you're able to pick from the residents in that facility. And those are the residents that's in that facility. And what you're doing is just checking if they're present, out to the hospital, out an appointment, have a home visit, went AWOL. If they're AWOL, then that's really bad. Out to the ER, other. And you're just selecting, what it is. And if you select that everybody's present, it says this question, okay, so present, right? So if you select everybody's present, I guess I might have to blur out the names on here for, it's not PPI, but I may have to blur out these names. But anyway, you put who's present, and it also is great for giving me a count. Now, I'm in preview mode, it's not going to give me a count, but if I go back to my original form, it'll probably give me a count. So I should do that. Let me see. Let me come out of this one. I'll go back to my portal, and I'll fill out an actual form. All right, cool. So I'm going to fill out an actual form and then get an actual count. So if I'm doing this now, and I'll be going through the same process. That's the facility. And it's the same process. If somebody is out, so let's say we pick this guy right here and we put out hospital, right? Now it's going to tell me at the end how many residents I have, via an email. I'm sure we'll have to go to another page and look for the email. So let's hurry up and get to it. Not that many people to go through. Now, this is another thing where I could probably update it so you could just click the residents that's out, ER, something like that. Everybody else would be perceived to be in facility. But again, when staff is using this, it's quick. Now, additional notes: incident report required if a person is at AWOL. So, I'm going to change this also. Incident required if AWOL is selected or ER is selected, maybe, emergency, but we'll see. But anyway, next. And that's it. And then you just certify it and you send it in. So now, that's done. And then you have reports. And so my reports, like I just filled it out, it's 12:52. And I get all this here, and it has, one person in the hospital, and it has everybody else is present, and it has my forms. And the forms will tell you that I have 29 residents. I have to adjust the margin over here. 29 residents total, 28 present, 1 out at the hospital. It gives you the names of everybody present, and then it gives you the 1 person out and the reason they're out at the hospital. And that's it, submitted by. So it's something where now this gets emailed. So it goes to the email for the office manager, assistant, and they simply print this out. So now when somebody comes in and asks for a census, they print it out. If the medtech staff, anybody needs a census in the morning time, you print it out. Here's the census. We have 29 residents total, 28 present, 1 out at the hospital. It also works for me because I know that I want to keep my resident rate at 30, let's say. So I want to keep it at 30. So now I know how I'm 29, I could get another person in. Now I do have somebody else. I do have 2 other people coming in. So, that way this at this facility, no. I have 1 person coming to this facility, so I'll bring it back up to 30. But we just had, I think we have another person out over there. So that's how this works. This is the Daily Census form that I created. And that's why I created it, to just get rid of that headache of keeping track of census. Now, again, I'm sure that, if a facility has a MAR that they use, a MAR is also a means of census. However, everyone can't access tomorrow, but it can give you a report, I'm sure, of the residents that are there, uh, based off of who you administered meds to. Again, this is for any of the staff that's on the floor, working overnight. They could pick up their phone and they could 1, 2, 3 with their phone and send it in really quick. And so that's what I designed all this stuff for. Was I don't want to be reliant on the assistant administrator or the administrator to always have this stuff. These systems are meant to give them help, and then is meant to get the staff involved as well in the process. And that way everything runs a little bit more efficiently, a little smoothly. And like I said, it's going to save me time. It's going to save them time. And then it saves money. In this case, I'm not going to get a fine. And that's it.